This was the agenda that we started out with, but bearing in mind that out of the 30-odd people who are coming, almost everybody is coming to all three sessions. I'm not too inclined to worry about following this agenda religiously. So if we get to make a start on the next one, then well and good. And we can, it will mean that we have to spend less time next week on that aspect. So we started off looking at Ding when we were trying to, we're trying, as I'm sure lots of people were, to find some way of keeping ringing going, keeping interest going during lockdown. And so I gathered together a group of people on various forms of video software, and we experimented to see what would work. We tried some simple experiments to see what the timing was like. I would say 1, 2, somebody else says 3, 4, I say 1, 2, they say 7, 8. It doesn't work. What you get is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So, and it sounds just as bad to them. So the delay is several seconds, potentially. So it was absolutely hopeless. However, we tried it for a couple of weeks, and David Norman came along to the second session, and it was his inspiration that brought us Ding. So he saw through the problem and realized that the only way to do this was a program that would send a message around much more quickly than you get anything going through on Zoom. No. So when you're ringing with Ding, it's just basically down to ringing by pressing a key or clicking the mouse on a button on the screen. And the way it works then is that the computer sends a message, and it gets a message back. You get a message back, and everybody else in the band also gets the same message to say that you've to ring your bell. And by doing that, by sending the message out and waiting for it to come back again, waiting, in theory at least, everybody gets that message at the same time. And so you can all hear the bells at the same time. So that's the underlying sort of fundamental concept, and I'm sure the same concept is used by Ringing Room as well. Now, in Ding, we use the sound of some real bells. It's actually the bells of Great Yarmouth, which is a 30-100 weight ring of 12 with a flat sixth. And I personally find that particularly nice during lockdown, being able to hear some actual bells and not just listening to a recording of them either, but actually participating in ringing them, albeit only via a keyboard. Now we have a very simple presentation in Ding, it's, particularly in the version that David Norman produced to begin with. We've just got a couple of rows of box-shaped buttons with bell numbers in one of the boxes, and the numbers are basically acting like your Sally. So they move from the lower box at handstroke to the upper box at backstroke. So we've got two rows of buttons. So treble on the right or treble on the left. Well, this was an issue that David had to think about for a while when he was putting the program together. And he came to the conclusion, when you're in a clockwise ring, the treble calls look to, you look to your right. And so on that basis, he decided that it would make best sense to have the piano layout. So simple layout here, with the highest note on the right, the lowest note on the left. And to some people that does look the wrong way round. It can look the wrong way around at first glance, but it only looks the wrong way round because if you are reading it as a line of numbers, and then you're probably imagining it as something, as a copy of diagrams. But I've picked out this photograph from the website for the bells in the Scilly Isles. I believe it was. And it makes perfect sense here with 8 bells to have the tenor on the left and the treble on the right. I don't think one is left wondering why was the photo taken from this side and not the other side. So, and if you're ringing on handbells, you will always ring with the higher note in your right hand and the lower note in your left. So a whole series of reasons why we preferred to put them with the treble on the right and the tenor on the left. So moving on from there to the basic layout that you get in Ding when you've got 6 bells. So you just got the numbers all at hand stroke with the bells at the lower boxes, and there is an H above one of those numbers, and that is telling me that that is the bell that I'm ringing, and it's telling me which key I need to press in order to ring it. So if I press the H key, what will happen is that the number 3 will move up to the top box, and I'll get a B in the bottom box to tell me to what to use for the backstroke to get it back again. So it's H for handstroke and B for backstroke, which are a couple of keys that are conveniently located next to each other on the keyboard. And there are some other options which we'll come on to later. But for now, I just want to look at the basics of the concept. So that was the original version of Ding, and that allowed us to meet and ring methods together. And most especially, it was achieved with the help of a program that David wrote to go with it, which is called Bob, and I'll talk a bit more about that later. However, the downside of this version of the program was that it only worked on Windows, and we were getting requests from people saying, "Can we have it on Mac or other platforms?" And so I started working on another version using a piece of gaming software which is called Unity. And if you've ever seen your kids playing their games, you've seen the kind of 3D effects that you can get on them. They'll play games in which they're navigating their way around castles or taking part in a battle, and the graphics are so amazing. It can sometimes look as though it's look more like a video than an animation. So those are the kinds of capabilities that gaming software environments have to offer, and I wanted to take advantage of that in what we could provide. on Ding. So first of all, though, we had to make sure that it could offer the same capabilities that you get in the standard version of Ding. And so we have the presentation that you get in Unity version of Ding, which is exactly the same when you're ringing with the buttons, and it's distinguished by the blue background. And you can have people ringing from both versions at the same time, quite happily. You can have some ringers on the Unity version and others on the standard version. But of course, as I say, the big plus is in what you can get when you move on to 3D modes. We haven't quite got as far as making it look like it's real video footage, but we are well on the way there, I think, with the early stages. So we can make a clean-looking ringing circle, and in this version, as you'll see later, the ropes are able to move, so so that you can see it and practice your rope sight, see hand stroke and backstroke. And you still ring your bell in exactly the same way by pressing the H key for hand stroke and B key for backstroke. And this time, the sound is delayed, as it is when you're ringing real bells. Whereas when you ring in the buttons mode, the sound is immediate, as it would be with handbells. So that's another, it is a useful step towards making virtual ringing feel like ringing real bells. And it's also a feature that, certainly to the best of my knowledge, no other software is capable of. So having such a visualization. So that's a very quick run through of the basics, just in getting to know how to use it. We'll go much more into depth later on. I wanted to talk a bit about the benefits and advantages that I see that can be sold to people for why they should be doing this. And right from the outset with Ding, our learners found it, were able to make big progress. Perhaps the fact that they didn't have any preconceived ideas might have helped. Certainly the fact that they didn't need to master bell control. So they were able to go pretty much straight into ringing rounds and to start learning how to play and hunt. And because the bell rings immediately when the key is pressed, the learner soon grasps how to do plain hunt. You don't need to mention the ideas of first you follow the 2 and then you follow the 4, or follow the bells in the same order coming back down to lead. Absolutely no need for any of that. Don't even mention it, and they will they will be able to ring in 3rd place or 5th place, whatever, quite easily, just by listening and counting. And so consequently, right from the start, your learner is seeing ringing in the right way and listening for the whole thing rather than just focusing on the bell that they're following. I always think that call changes are a bad news really for learners, because they specifically encourage a learner to focus on only one bell. Anyway, so those benefits that I mentioned so far, well, those are things we could all do with handbells anyway. So why don't we? and that's where we come back to Bob. So Bob is the computer ringing the bells for you. And Bob can ring as few or as many of the bells as you want. And he will ring them perfectly and reliably. And that means that with the help of Ding, you can send your learners away to practice in their own home, and they can get as much useful practice as they want. Much better practice, I think, than is to be achieved by just writing the method out with pen and paper, which is, after all, as much as I was ever able to do. So you're also, I mean, if you use handbells, well, you could use handbells at the start of the practice, but even then, you're hampered by the fact that you need to persuade your best ringers to turn up every week and turn up early, and they'll still make mistakes as well. So if you've got Bob who isn't going to make any mistakes and will always be there, there's definitely a plus to be had there. So it doesn't matter how many of them turn up. It doesn't even matter if you don't have the ringers in the first place. And as would be the case, especially if you're a new band. So other software does offer you the ability to ring with the computer. Mobile is an example. But when you look at that sort of program, what happens is that the computer rings all the bells, except it leaves a gap for you to fill in. And it just keeps going regardless. That's fine if you're an experienced ringer and you're accustomed to using mobile. You just want a bit of time to practice your Bristol major or something ready for a quarter. If you're a learner, I think you need a little bit more patience than that. And Bob will wait for you to ring, and we'll just carry on from there quite happily. So your learner can get some good practice at home. And to begin with, yes, maybe they are ringing by waiting for a gap and then realizing that it must be them and ringing their bell. But like anybody, they are going to move forward from there. I think trying to rush people into or force them into ringing by rhythm, ringing with a forced rhythm. We don't have any choice normally on tower bells, but you wouldn't do it with somebody learning the piano. You wouldn't stick a metronome on in front of them when they're first learning a piece. So these sort of things go for any level of learner, really. The ability to practice with Bob, practice with Bob and one or two other people, perhaps, which is another feature that you get with Ding that you don't get with certainly most other software. I think with mobile, you can get the computer to ring all the bells except yours, and you press a button to ring your bell, but that will do if it's only you. You can't have a team of you ringing with the computer. So with Bob, you can have 2 or 3 of you there, and Bob's filling in the other bells. And it doesn't matter whether you're the brand new recruit who is struggling with rhythm, just ringing the rhythm of ringing rounds, or whether you're attempting to ring half a dozen bells simultaneously for Orion Maximus. You can still be benefiting from you still get the opportunity to practice. You never stop learning in bell ringing. So you can ring with the buttons. You can do it just by listening. You don't need to look at the screen in order to do that. Just as you don't need to look around when you ring with handbells. But by the time you move up to ringing with the ropes, you need to discover rope sight. So your learner here, hopefully your learner by this stage already understands what it means to listen and ring in fourth place, for instance. So now all he needs is to be encouraged to look instead of listening. And I've certainly found that with my learners at any rate. It's been sufficient just to tell them to look, and they will get the idea of looking for that number of bells and placing their rope there. And they're not hung up on the one bell that they're following, like they are when they're learning in the tower. And you watch people, if you watch a learner's eyes in the tower, you'll find that they're still busy looking at the bell they followed last, or perhaps more likely still, looking at their own Sally. So they're missing out on a lot of information. So that's another place where you get a good benefit in doing it with Ding, because you don't need to worry about the bell control. And also, when you're doing it in the tower, of course, you are constrained by the speed of the ringing. Your bell is going to turn whether you want it to or not, and so is everybody else's. So you've got to go at the speed that the bells go at. And if you can't mentally cope with that, it's going to be demoralizing and a big effort. So whereas with Ding, Bob is patient, he'll wait for you, and you can ring and improve your ringing and build up to the speed that you should be going at, without getting too demoralized along the way, I hope. So, but you still need that practice. I mean, you can practice as much as you like during the week like that. Just like learning any other musical instrument, you definitely need that weekly session with your teacher in order to give you some guidance. So I wouldn't encourage anyone to learn exclusively with Bob and think that they're getting somewhere. But however, you do have a good opportunity both to practice methods and to acquire rope sight using the computer, and all of that should leave you much better placed when the real practice night comes round. And when you stand behind other ringers as a learner, you should be able to follow what's going on and follow it from a much earlier stage. If, like us, you have your learners in the tower, you encourage them to come along to practice night, they probably spend a lot of their time looking at ringing that's going on and really not knowing what to make of it. Whereas if they've got the opportunity to practice with Bob, then they can have an understanding of it from a much earlier stage. And it's hard for peel ringers to believe, but I've heard tell that the average ringer is learning Bob doubles. And when you think that actually they get no real practice from one week to the next, quite likely their fellow ringers aren't much further advanced than they are, and none of them feel that they're able to intrude on somebody else's practice. They feel that they don't they're not sure whether they'd be welcome there. So it just stays that way. And I'd like to hope that with Dean and Bob, we can raise the standard of ringing, and not just for the individual, but consequently for the band as a whole. So everybody benefits from that, and that long period when you're just doing bob doubles and plain hunt for one learner after another who gives up before they can before they get any further forward. So maybe we can see people move to a higher standard much sooner. And there's another thing I feel I like to mention. It's certainly something that matters to me, because I'm so much less mobile now than I used to be, and it's a struggle for me to get up the tower. I need help just to get up the tower, and even more help to get down again. So I'm quite. I feel quite lucky that I'm able to get to still able to ring at all. And of course, none of us are getting any younger. I'm sure we may hope to live to be 100 and be still ringing right up to our dying day, and some people achieve it. But I think we will, many of us will see the day when we can no longer make it up the tower. But if you've still got the strength and the mental capacity to press a key, then you can still ring on ding, and hopefully there will be others willing to ring with you. But even if there aren't enough, or there aren't any at all, you can still use Bob. And as I said at the start, it's great just to be able to hear real bells and to be part of ringing them. So that's a quick run through of what I see as being the advantages. We'll move on to a demonstration in a moment, but first let's just see. Let's open the floor. There we are. All I can do is ask all to unmute, so you still have to unmute yourselves. So would anybody like to add any thoughts so far?
There is now a new way of ringing together with Able by a new program that's called Muster. So that is another possibility, but I don't know anybody that uses it, to be honest, and it certainly doesn't have the same features with the automated ringer as Ding does.
Mm-hmm. So what does Muster have?
Basically, it links people together using Able. So the ringers that use it have to have a copy of Able, which probably, as you all know, is a paid piece of software. It's not that expensive, £20 or so. Muster is free and links the bells together. So one ringer could be ringing one bell in the tower, and another ringer, as many as you have, can ring all the other bells that you have available.
Uh-huh.
But it doesn't seem to have gained much traction as yet. I haven't heard of anybody really using it as such.
Right. Yeah. Yes. I suppose. I mean, Able. If you're ringing it with a dumbbell, as you are, then I can imagine that would be potentially quite good.
Yeah.
Giles,
hi.
Can I just say something? I decided that I was going to learn to ring with the Devices branch on a Saturday night. And it's been quite a challenge, but I have to say I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And because Bob and I did so much ringing, but I can't get him to do it at all. But and your Wednesday night practices are you know, that you give us quite a chance to improve. And I just would like to encourage people to try it. They might enjoy it more than they perhaps think.
Absolutely. I mean, I would very much like to hope that by the time we've finished with this with these sessions, we'll have 30 more people to come along to our practices. Because with real practices, you see people shy about whether or not they can go and visit another tower, or that sort of thing, whether they will fit in, whether they'll be getting in the way, and it's not true. It very rarely is. And as I said to you, Christine, you are just as welcome at our ding practices as you would be at a real ringing practice, and as welcome as we would be at your practice. So I don't think anybody needs to feel that they're not welcome. Every time I run a dinging practice that is open for people to join in, I always put the Zoom details on the sign-on screen, and I will point that out where you would see it later on. So you'll always be able to see that and know that it's okay to come and join the practice, and we will make you welcome.
I think that's ideal, Giles, because as you said about people being shy, it is this aspect of not wanting to make yourself a fool. I think there's something inside a lot of us about that. I think the simulator at Marlborough, where I go, and unfortunately it's changed with COVID, but I think that was helping a lot of the people from my tower to get over that initial. It's just going with them, step over the threshold, and you're halfway there. You find people above you, below you, equal to you, and it's very friendly. Listening to you there, that's very, very good to hear from Christine and yourself about what can be done.
Yeah, and I think I see advanced towers where they are perfectly welcome towards visitors, and if visitors ever go there, they will give them a turn in which they get to ring with a strong band around them. So they're being given, an excellent opportunity to ring, but they still go away thinking that, or believing that those 5 or 10 minutes that the band spent ringing coming down to their level, were getting in the way. And it's, as I say, it simply isn't true. And we all, I'm sure we all know, if you've got youngsters in your band, new recruits, especially when they are, when they're making good progress and they're keen, it fires up the whole band, and it gives you a reason to turn up. You can go to advanced practices in which everyone's been ringing for donkey's years, and you're not actually ringing anything that they haven't been able to ring for donkey's years either. You just turn up and ring the same old set of methods every time, and those are the practices that I think I wonder what the point is. So it's the ones where there are the new people that are the ones that I like. So, okay, let's see if we can have a look at Ding in action. And I'm going to focus on the Unity version of Ding, because it offers basically everything that's in the ordinary version, plus a bit more. So let's share screen again. Okay, so I'll fire up Ding here. Now, on the starting screen, we just have to enter our name at the top and choose the tower that you want to join. So I've previously created a tower that I just called Giles. So I will tick that. Now it's here, when we have our open practices, I will always put in the description column here, visitors welcome, Zoom, and then the meeting number and the password. So you've got everything there that you need. In fact, a lot of our regular ringers rely on that. So when we ring a court appeal, I don't put those details on there, and that's caught people out. Then they discover that they haven't got a note of what the details are. So I'm going to join an existing tower by selecting one here. Now, given that I'm joining this existing tower, I don't need to do anything with these two fields down at the bottom. I don't know whether you can see the mouse actually as I move around. Are you seeing the pointer?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So yes, you don't need to fill in the tower name or description when you are joining a tower that already exists. If you are creating a new, if you're not joining a tower that already exists, if you don't want to join any of those, then instead of ticking that row, you fill in these two fields, and that creates a tower. So for other people, we would have Melksham 1 would have been entered in here, and 8 bells, the description would have been entered in here, and so consequently it now appears on the list for us to see. So as I say, I'll go into here and I'll click on OK. And I can't do that because I've already called myself that in the other copy that I've got running. I've got another copy running so that I can set up a band and do tower captain-y things and just show you the ringing. So I will give myself a different name and sign on. Okay, so I've set it so that it takes us to the buttons mode to begin with, and that will allow us to see the simpler version of ringing from the outset. Now, as it stands, none of the buttons have got a letter above them, so I'm not set to ring anything. So as conductor, I will disappear off for a moment onto my other screen where I will set up a band. And I'm going to set up a band in which Bob rings all of the bells except the treble, and I'll ring the treble. And we'll just do some rounds. All right, so now you can see that we have a an H above the 1. So that tells me then that if I press H, it will ring my bell. And as soon as I do so, Bob will join in. So I will now, one thing that you need to bear in mind with Windows or any other system is that when you type a key, same applies if you're in something like Word or something like that. If you type a key and you've got a different program active, then that key isn't going to go where you intended. And I just pressed H, and then realized that the reason nothing had happened was that the active program here was still my other copy of Ding on a different screen. So I need to click on the bar at the top here in order to make this copy of Ding the active program. And now I can press H and it will ring. And Bob has immediately followed. Now, I don't know whether you heard that. I think I probably have to set up the audio. So let me do that.
Yes, I heard.
Anne will have heard it because you've got Ding already running. So you will now get confused because you're going to hear two copies of the sound. One produced by your own copy of Ding and one sent over Zoom, like so, when I press the B key to ring the backstroke. Okay, did everybody hear that this time?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So the nice sound of the middle six from Great Yarmouth. Yes, to begin with, then that's all you need to practice your rhythm and get into ringing some rounds, and then your tower captain can set things up for something else. So let's just, for the sake of keeping it quick, we'll just do some plain hunt on 5. All right, so I'm setting it up so that Bob will now know to ring plain hunt on 5, and Bob will ring as you do when you ring handbells. He will ring 2 blows of rounds, handstroke and backstroke, and then go. All right, and he'll stop automatically when we get to the end. So as before, since I'm ringing the treble, Bob will just join in straight away as soon as I have as soon as I start. So I just mentioned there, I don't know whether you got a bit of a hesitation there. I did. That was because of my network. And it's possible that you didn't actually. But oh, that's why are you doing that? Is that because I've got 2 different copies running? This is. Okay, there were a few hesitations there. Some of them were me accidentally or deliberately hesitating, and quite a few of them were from Bob because of caused by network issues. My network connection isn't a brilliant one, and with everybody's video running all at once, that makes a difference too. One thing I make a habit of doing during the ringing is I minimize Zoom, and if you know how to do that, when you minimize Zoom, you get just one picture instead of everybody's picture, so that immediately cuts down the amount of network space that's being taken up by Zoom. And you can go further and minimize that one as well. So then you don't get any video signal coming in. Zoom is clever enough to know that it doesn't need any video signal. And so consequently, that network space isn't taken up. I've never found it necessary to switch my camera off during ringing, but I don't know whether that would help, whether it would run any better. But having done that, hopefully the network will run a bit better this time round. And so yes, it does make a useful difference. I mean, that could be just coincidence that that it happened to run better that time round, of course. So let's show you now what it looks like in when we've got the ropes going. Perhaps before I do that, one question that often comes up is what these things are down here at the bottom. They're actually there for if you're running on a touch screen. So if you're trying to use this on your phone, on an Android phone, then you haven't got a keyboard, and you don't want to be pressing the buttons with your finger, because if you're doing that, then you can't see what's going on. So that's why I added these little handles, and what you do is you slide them across from one side to the other, like so. Which doesn't really make much sense to do when it's on screen and you're doing it with the mouse. But if you're doing it with your fingers on a touch screen, then it's a reasonable way of ringing your bell. Now, on the sides here, we've got a couple of little arrows which allow you to page through between different screens. And I'm going to take us to the page here, because this is the one where we set up the bells to ring in 3D mode. And so I want to show you that option. So we've got a choice of style, which is the moment it's set to numbered buttons. So what you've got here is telling you what your setting currently means. All right. And if I move this across, I'll just click on it and drag it across to here. We've now got the bell ropes mode. Or alternatively, you can just click at one end or the other and move it that way. So if I click here, it goes back to numbered buttons, and click here, it goes back to bell ropes. So that's bell ropes mode, but we also want to change the layout. So instead of having it in the mode with the treble on the right, we'll put it over to the 3D circle mode, which is over here. And when I go back to page back again to my left over to here, we've now got the circle mode. And you may remember that when we left it, we'd rung the 2 blows of rounds, and the second had led, and it was waiting for me to ring the treble. So that's why the second is currently at backstroke. He's still waiting. He's waiting. He's very patient. And if I now press the H key to join in, we will see my rope move up. I don't know, are you hearing 2 lots of sound here or one?
2 lots.
2 lots, okay. that is because I've got my other copy of Ding running. So I wonder, let's see if I can't get rid of that. This is actually a useful little capability here that's worth mentioning, because when you're when you're ringing with Ding, and you may have found this too if you've used Ringing Room, you can hear a lot of feedback from other people, especially if you haven't got everybody using headsets. And it ought to be possible for me to get to this screen by clicking on the volume icon down in the bottom here. But for some reason, that's not working on my computer at the moment. So instead, I did a search for volume mixer, and I pulled up this screen here. And what I quite often do when we're having a ringing a session on Ding is I'll go into here and I'll turn the volume down for Zoom. Down to some lower level, and keep the volume for Ding up high because I'm working with a headset. And that way I can hear the bells on Ding nicely, but I can't hear the feedback that's coming through from anybody else. So, so perhaps I'll do that later. Now, I've got 2 copies of Ding running, and I wonder which one it is I want to get rid of. So let's try getting rid of that and see. And then if I ring my bell, that's it. That's it. Okay, so the bell is now ringing at the right time. Now, I don't know how well that will have worked for you watching it, because you're watching, after all, a session over Zoom, and there is actually an option here to optimize it for a video, and maybe that will help. So let's just run that through again and see whether it looks better this time around. Get rid of that.
It's actually more blurry.
Is it? Oh, a lot of network delay. It takes a bit of practice because, unlike with real ringing, you haven't got the feel of the bell to give you a sense of rhythm. So it is a skill in its own right to ring on electronic bells. Not something you can take for granted, that just because you can ring things on real bells, you're going to be able to do them instantly. So you will discover that that you go through a period of being a learner. It's also worth mentioning, especially when you're trying to ring by ropes like this, in the tower, when you're using rope sight, you can see people shaping up to pull, and you get a bit of advance warning that they are about to pull. In Ding, you don't get any of that, because all you've got coming through from the other end is somebody pressing a button to say go. and it's just on and off like that, nothing in between. And when that happens, the signal has got to go from their computer over the internet to a server and then back to you, which is going to take a few milliseconds. And it's not all that long between when you ring and between the bell you're following and your turn to ring in the tower. So when you're trying to follow another rope here, you've already lost some of the time that you would normally get just out of that internet delay. Now we make some measures to try and allow for that, but to some extent it only shifts the problem. So it does mean that in order to ring by rope sight, you have to assume that you have to ring very close to the bell in front. And you may do well to have a look 2 bells in front, and then you'll get a clearer idea of when to ring. So if I say when I'm clicking the button, perhaps you'll be able to see. I don't know whether that will work actually. I can try it, but I think it's quite likely that there'll be some kind of lip sync thing between when you hear me speak and when you actually see things moving. But I'll just try. So I'm clicking H now. Let's click on the top bar. It's better. Now. 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 So I've no idea whether that worked, but yes, the idea was to demonstrate just how close you have to pull in order to produce even sounding ringing. And the ringing is going to tend to be slow, again, because of that internet delay. So we've rung a few quarters now. We have yet to ring a quarter with people using ropes. All the quarters so far have been on buttons. And I think the fastest has been 52 minutes, which is still fairly slow going. And the slowest was 72 minutes. So let's see. How are we doing? Well, it's 20 to 9. So while we are then in demonstration mode, let us show you a little bit more of what's going on with some of those options and the other settings. So I mentioned back at the beginning that it was it's H for hand stroke and B for backstroke, and some people find that quite difficult. And I prefer to have H for both strokes. So if you like that, then you can untick this box here on the keyboard, and now you're going to use H for both hand and backstroke. So I'm just going to put it back to button mode again for a second. We'll see. So I've switched it to single key mode, so it's now H for hand stroke and H again for backstroke. If you ring by using the mouse, then you do it by clicking on the button that's got the H in it. So you click there for hand stroke and you click there for backstroke. And again, you can simplify that if you want to by unticking that box. So now it doesn't matter which button you click on, you can click on the number if you want to. And I'm staying in the same place, and that works. But I think most people are actually ringing either with the keyboard, or if you have a mouse wheel, then you can use that as well. So I can ring just by moving the mouse wheel a little away from me for hand stroke and towards me for backstroke, which actually makes for a very comfortable and easy way of ringing, and also associating which is hand stroke and which is backstroke. And those who like to have the separate keys, the H and B, usually like it because they've got a sense of, because it helps to emphasize which one is hand stroke and which is backstroke. It also helps in case you accidentally press the key twice or something like that. There's an option here on the bells for whether you want to use a light, medium or heavy bells. So we were ringing with 6. We were ringing with the middle 6 there, and we're now set to the heavy 6. Right, so that is the back 6 at Great Yarmouth, and if we go to the light 6, that must be the 6 that includes the flat 6th, I think. And the middle ones will be the ones from 3 through to 3 to 9. So light 6 sounds like this. Okay, but just for a little bit of fun, you can also vary the pitch a bit if you want to. So you can have a slightly deeper note. And you can make it quite a lot deeper. I think Liverpool Cathedral is something like a B flat. I need Ben here to tell me. But by the time you get down to here, you're something heavier than Big Ben. So that really does sound like quite a weight to be lugging around for the back 6. They sound quite good though, in spite of it, for the heavy ones. By the time you go to the other extreme, I'm not sure that works quite so well. So if I go to the lightest possible ring, are a little bit lacking in resonance there. They're not the kind of bells that if you visited that tower, you would feel they were a pleasant ring. Anyway, so those are the options that are available there. And what we can do now, perhaps, is I will exit from here, and I'm going to uninstall it and install it again so that you can see what happens, what the installation procedure looks like. So I shall go into my browser. If you have Facebook, then let's try the right page. If you have Facebook, there is a group for Ding here at Facebook Groups Dinging. So if you look up our group and join it, because on here I keep the announcements for the latest builds, and there's sort of general news as well, reports of whatever's going on. There is also some instructions that that Lenka Stokes has been writing. Lenka is a beginner, so she's written them from perspective of a beginner, and it's very much in draft. But so consequently, you know, if you take a look through those, if you feel you want to take a look, I'm sure she would appreciate any feedback that you can offer and improvements on it. So let's go back up to the announcement section here, and part of the reason why I went into here is that this announcement section includes the location that you need to go to in order to find the installation, and some brief notes on how to install. There are two different versions of it for Windows. One is for 64-bit Windows, and the other is for 32-bit Windows. So what's the difference between the two? Well, 32-bit Windows is what came along when we had Windows 95. And it basically made the computers make use of bigger numbers at a fundamental level, so that they could cope with more memory. And going up to 64-bit allows them to cope with bigger numbers again, because by now the numbers that a 32-bit computer can cope with at that low fundamental level are getting to be a bit more restrictive. So there were limits in file sizes. For instance, if you wanted to record, if you wanted a very big video file or a database or something like that, you would ultimately reach a limit in how big it could be on the 32-bit version of Windows. So a few things like that were addressed by doing it. So I'm going to go to that link, and while I'm here, I'll just mention there's the link. There's some instructions for what to do for the Mac. So we'll go to this link. All right. And the file that we want to run here for Windows is called DingUnity 64. If you go through the whole thing and you find that it doesn't run when you get to the end, it's because you need to start again and use Ding Unity 32. So don't worry, you can just give that a try. There are ways that we can find out what it is in advance, but to be honest, it's easier just to do it and see what happens. And there's the installation file for the Mac as well. So let's go with the Ding Unity 64 for Windows. And so if I double click on that and it goes into here, opens the file, and what you need to do now, they don't make it easy with Google Drive here, which is where this is stored, but there's a little button right over here in the top corner that says download, and you need to click on that, and you get the first of a series of things to do with viruses, and you just need to say download anyway. And a screen has popped up over here, so I'll bring that across. And I will save that file. And here it is starting to download. So it will look slightly different depending on which browser you choose to use. But if you're using some browsers, I think, do it with boxes up in the top corner here. But if you're on Chrome or Edge, then it's down here. So it's now finished downloading, and you just get this set of choices. But I'll just click on here, and it opens. And again, it's put the window over on the other side. Here we are. It's opened a screen that looks like this. And I now need to choose this file here, one file in that folder, and I'll just double click on that, and off it goes. And this is where antivirus things start to kick in and be awkward. Now, I'm using Windows Defender here, and that's fairly friendly as they go. So it just has a big button that says don't run, and apparently no other options. Well, actually, there is another option. You click on more info. That's the secret. When you click on more info, you then get a button that says run anyway. And I know who wrote this program. I did. So I'm quite happy to install it. Right, so I'll let it carry on running. If you're using Norton Antivirus, oh, I forgot to remove the previous version, so I'm going to do that so that we see what actually happens. If you're using Norton Antivirus, then it's a bit more aggressive than that, and by default, it seems that Norton Antivirus will take one look at it and say, I don't know what this program is, I'm going to delete it. Which is, it's really sort of bad behavior from programmers. It's quite unethical, really, to do that. So you have to disable Norton, and there are instructions that you can find if you Google it on how do I disable Norton. I think it appears somewhere down here in your system tray. There's an icon that you have to click on, and then you get an option for disabling it for 15 minutes. Which will give you long enough to do the installation. So I'm going to start this again now, so that we actually install it. All right, same message again. It's still only me. So we've got past here. That's the difficult bit done. From here, it's straightforward. You just click Next. You click here for Install, and you click here. And then if you've installed any other software, you will definitely have seen what comes next. You won't see it on my screen here. You get the Windows warning message to ask you to confirm that you want to install it. Those messages are there to prevent unscrupulous software suppliers from installing software onto your machine without you ever actually giving permission for it, without you even knowing that they're doing it. So Windows pops up a message to say, did you really, basically it's saying, did you really intend to do this? And it's done in a way that people can't replicate it. So they can't pretend to be doing it. So I click on yes, and then it finishes the job off. All right, just click on finish. And we're done now, so I can close that. I don't need that anymore. And I don't need that anymore. So I'm going to come out of that like so. And amongst your buttons here, you should have Ding Unity 64-bit. And when you double click on it, okay, you get to the sign-on screen. Now, if you don't get that far, there's two possibilities. If you just get a black screen, and it never gets as far as this, then it might just be that there's a problem contacting the server where Ding is running. So that can happen very occasionally, or maybe it's your network connection that's gone down, or maybe David's doing some work on the server, so it's out of action or something like that. But you should get to here. If it doesn't even go as far as that black screen, if it gives you an error straight away, then that's telling you that you can't use the 64-bit version. You need to use the 32-bit version. So that's really just intended to be a quick run through of how to get that far. I'll mention the Mac system as well. So if you're on a Mac, you need to click on mac.zip to open that up. And again, you can download it onto your computer. And I will have to pretend that I am on a Mac, because obviously it's going to look different to this when you do so. But you'll notice that it's downloading. I didn't need to wait till it was open, till it was finished downloading before clicking on it. So I've already clicked on it and it says opening when complete. Here we are. All right, so we've got what it's come up with is this thing called ding.app, and you need to just drag that file into wherever you want to put it, that folder. And if we just have a look at what's actually in that folder, we've got contents and this lot. And as I understand it, on a Mac, is it normal for things to have a .app ending on them? Is that why they've done it like that? You go, once you've put it into wherever you want it, you just go into ding.app contents, Mac OS, and there's a file here called ding, and you just need to run that. And that's all. It will run straight away from that. The only other things you need to do are things to do with antivirus, of course. So I have seen the installation on Henny's Mac once. So I've got, but that's about as far as I can go towards having any understanding of what's actually involved. So yeah, if you're able to, who was it? Was it Debbie said you could get me a version? And I think it was it Debbie who yeah, Debbie's still here. So if you're able to get me a video of what that's actually like to run it through, that will be most helpful. So the only other thing that's worth doing for the benefit of anybody who wants to get ahead of the game and get this thing installed and running this week. And if you do, please come and join us on Saturday night at our practice starting at 7 o'clock. And we're also ding on Wednesday nights from 7 o'clock, and on Sundays we ding for evensong at 5:30, just choosing the time slots when we always used to ring anyway. So yeah, I just wanted to show you here what you need to know in order to run it for yourself, and we'll make this a quick run through. So this time, because I signed out before, my tower has disappeared. So I'm going to create myself another new tower. I need to give it a name. I don't have to give it a description, but I can if I want to.
You missed him being cut up.
All right. So I'll go into there. Now, when you go in for the first time, actually, you won't see this mode. You'll see it in ropes mode. But it remembers what option you used last, and that's why it's left me on buttons mode. So when you first, and it's also left me on this very light key, in spite of the fact that I uninstalled and reinstalled everything. So you will see it to begin with looking like this. That will be what you encounter when you first sign in. And it's put there with you ringing the treble and Bob ringing the other bells. So you can come straight into here and you can immediately just press the H key and set it going. B key for backstroke. So right from the start, that's just for rounds. Right from the start, you can get the practice that you want on and see what it's like ringing in rounds. Now, you didn't see these buttons earlier on. Because I've created the tower this time, I am the conductor, so I've been given some extra controls. And if I scroll to the left, as the conductor, I get the option to decide to set the band. All right, so as I said, it's set to have for me to ring the treble, and Bob is ringing the other ones. And in Unity, Bob is a part of the same program. So if we scroll across a further screen, we get to the screen where Bob is. And there, if you click on this drop down here, you get a choice of some methods. And you can choose what you want to ring. Let's say grants doubles. And you can also choose how fast you want Bob to ring it, which is an option that I rarely bother to move. But you can make him ring a bit faster or a bit slower. So we'll come back to here, and we can set it up to ring a different bell, and I'll put Bob to ring there. So everybody who is running Unity, anybody who logs in there, perhaps Chris Bush, have you got a copy of Ding up and going? Or maybe Anne would like to sign in again so we can see. I
just cannot see the screen, Giles. It's too small. I'm sorry.
Oh, right.
I'm just listening to you at the moment. So,
okay. All right. Well, maybe once we've done the video, we'll be able to. You'll be able to watch it on a bigger screen.
Which version of Unity of Ding? The Unity version.
Doesn't really. I don't mind. I don't mind.
Okay. Joined.
Okay, so now that Chris is joined, if I go down here, there he is on the list. And so I've got the 3, Chris has got the 2. In fact, if I just, let's see, now you're on the traditional Unity, the traditional version there.
I am at the moment.
So, yeah. So, okay. Well, if we can manage to, we'll ring a little bit and see what happens. So, which might be quite difficult for you because you're going to hear 2 lots of bells. As it is Bob who is ringing the treble, we need a way of telling Bob to start. And we do that by pressing here's treble. So he's still going to expect to ring 2 rounds and then go. So we can see how we get on. Okay,
sorry.
So Bob will stop automatically at rounds, but since Chris rang, Bob joined in. So I actually forgot there that I was ringing the 3rd, and we're looking at this from the treble's perspective. So what you can do now is you can use the arrow keys on your keyboard. So if you use the left and right arrow keys, you spin round. So left arrow is basically I'm walking round to my left, past the 2 and past the 3, and I can spin it round so that I get the right viewpoint. And I'm just holding the key down for as long as it takes to get round to where I want, and then hold the right arrow down and just wait until I get to where I want to be. All right. You can also use the up and down arrow keys to lift your viewpoint up and down. So this is the up key. I'll hold it still, hold it down, and it takes me up, and that's as high as it will let you go. And down, that is your limit. All right, so if you want to ring from that low down, personally, I think most of us want to ring from around about where we would expect the Sally to be anyway. If you're ringing on 10 bells, I'm not sure why 10 in particular, but you do tend to find on 10 that it can end up looking like that, and you can't see the bell that's opposite, and you move it a little bit so that you can, and then you can find that there's another pair of bells that are masking one another. So it's just about possible to get them separate, but not by very much. So when I'm ringing on 10, I tend to use the up arrow key and just differentiate things a little bit that way, just so that I can tell them apart a bit more. But it just needs that little bit of extra movement. And sometimes you'll find that you can't see the screen, or maybe it's too big or something like that. So if I maximize this to the full screen, what we can now do is if I use the page up key, that moves me forward. So I can get a close-up view. It will actually go beyond my rope if I want to, and halfway across the ringing room, because it's aiming for a point in the middle of the floor. But if I press the back key, then I can zoom back to a comfortable position. And that's important if you're ringing on a screen that's quite small. You might find that that you look at the screen and you can only see, you can't see all of the bells. So you need to zoom out a little bit. Page up and page down, on your laptops, they're often called PG up and PGDN, and they're usually somewhere around the top right-hand corner. And they're buttons that, surprisingly enough, a lot of people have never used. Yeah, so those are the three controls that you've got on where you are. And as you can see, there are some nice little mats on the floor to tell you who's ringing which bell. So quite likely you're looking at it from this viewpoint. So the conductor will place the band and you think, well, which bell am I ringing? And you end up having to sort of walk around here and have a look and see, and then you think, oh, I'm ringing a 3, right, and come back to where I was then. So once you're in position and ready to go, same rules apply. You can use the H and B key to ring your bell. You can use the mouse wheel. What you can't do is click on a mat or anything. That doesn't ring your bell. Some people have expected it to. Clicking on the rope doesn't ring your bell either. You can click on these controls if you want to. Why is it ringing the treble? That's not even right. That's better. Okay, I think there might be something wrong there. It shouldn't have rung anything when I did that. The settings that you've got here will automatically set you up for for your method, including bobs and singles. So you can call a bob if you want to practice that by clicking this button or by pressing the T key or the Y key for a single. So I think that probably gives you about enough to know. If you start ringing, one of the things that we find happens quite a lot on a practice night is that you assign everybody their bells and then they start trying them out for length. So they'll test their bell. Really, they're checking that they've still got a connection and checking that that it's going to respond when they press the key. But we always call it trying the bell out for length. And when it happens, Bob gets confused because Bob thinks that you've already rung. So if if I ring my bell a couple of times and then we start to ring Grancer, as soon as I get down to lead, Bob will think that I've already led, and he'll try and hit on me instead. So what you do to deal with that is you click on this reset button, and then that tells Bob to start again. When you click reset, you get this little effect here of the bells coming down. I never intended to put that in, but when it's happened the first time, I thought, oh, that's nice, so I left it in there. So that's a very quick run through of the key things that you want to know. We'll go through it all again next week in order to get you set up. But if you want to give it a go, then hopefully you've got enough there to find out. There is also a video with some instructions on YouTube, and
thank you. I'm leaving.
So,
sorry.
okie dokie.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Yeah, we are some way past time. So, so yeah, there's also a video on YouTube. There's a copy of the same video here as well. So if you can't find the version on YouTube or the link for it, I think it's mentioned in the Facebook group somewhere. So that might give you some help if you're wanting to install things. Yeah, I think that will probably just about do for this evening, because as I say, we're over time. So have we got anybody got some thoughts before we finish? Any questions?
Giles, I was just wondering how many bells you can ring. What's the maximum number that you can ring?
At the moment, we've got 12. So I have toyed with the idea of making it allow for more. I mean, we're limited really only by the fact that we've got the recordings of the actual 12 at Great Yarmouth. But now that I've got the ability to alter the pitch of them, there's no reason why I shouldn't make it run through why I shouldn't make it use an extra octave and give you 20 bells or whatever, as many as you like. So
12's enough, I think.
12 is probably enough for most people, yes. And if I set Bob to ring all of the bells, there we are. So Bob's now ringing everything. And let's give him something to do. So once you've set it to a 12 bell method, it gives you the 12 bell methods to choose from here. And there's a whole collection of them. So let's get it to do some Stedman syncs. And we can see how much faster it'll go too. Why not? Whether that will work on your videos, I'm not sure. But so I'll press Q and see how fast it goes. I think that's enough of that. We'll stand on that before you all end up thinking, what's the point in going ringing? Why don't we just let the computer do it? So yeah. So I mean, it's some good practice on your rope site as well. So I've used that to practice my rope site for a bit of Stedman syncs because I haven't done much 12 bell ringing. I know David Norman's been using it. He uses the standard version with buttons, but he likes to practice Bristol Royal on 2 or Bristol Maximus on 2 bells. So it's well above anything he could attempt to ring with an actual band of people on tower or handbells. So so yeah, there's plenty of opportunity for anybody at any level to learn anything. So
well, so thank you very much, Giles. That was fascinating, and look forward to seeing you next week.
Lovely. Okay, well, see you next week, and and with a bit of luck, as I say, hopefully see some of you on Saturday or even tomorrow.
Cheers, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Giles. Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye.